Hi everyone, how are you doing today? Thanks very much for the intro. Okay, so this talk today, it's on fine-tuning OpenAI models using Terraform. I'm calling this a GenAI ops use case. So a little bit about me. I'm Richard Weerasinghe, a senior principal at Slalom Consulting. I'm part of the cloud team at Slalom, and that means that I work on cloud modernization, DevOps, et cetera, and I'm a Hashi ambassador, aligned with Terraform and Terraform providers. In a past world, I'm ex-AWS, and as a solution architect there, I was active in the AWS Terraform contributors for AWS. So I have a many merged PRs within the Terraform provider for AWS as well. And so today, since this is Hashi Talks, we're looking at how we can use Terraform to manage the fine-tuning process of models on OpenAI. And then finally, once we've done everything, we'll look at a bit of a demo, and we'll talk a little bit about the landscape of where Terraform support sits today in terms of OpenAI, Amazon Bedrock, and other GenAI platforms such as Google Vertex AI and XAI. Okay, let's move on. So agenda today, we've got sort of these areas to cover. First is how and why do we want to mess with the models that are available on these platforms? So how do we add data to these to give us good results in our responses from these models? The second thing is, we're going to look at fine tuning specifically and how that can be used to augment models to suit our use cases. And then we're going to look at, well, how does Terraform fit into this? And why am I suggesting this is a good use case for Terraform? And then we'll kind of get into the demo portion. We'll look at what a GenAI ops workflow looks like at a typical high level. And we'll do a demo to kind of run through it at a very simple example. So, that's available on my GitHub. We can share that around. People can look at that and give me feedback or give it a try. And finally, we'll do a wrap up and thanks to the group. Okay. All right, so there are two ways typically to add data to OpenAI models, at least. There's two main methods. One is called fine-tuning, and the other is embedding. And so there are pros and cons to both approaches. And the way I like to think about this is that fine-tuning is you are taking the existing model, you are adding a bunch of data to this model, asking the model to train itself on this data you're giving it, and you're creating a customized model for your specific requirement. And so what you end up with is a different model to the original model that's capable of your specific requirements. The other option, which is I'm sure most of us have tried and played with, is giving the model context as part of the prompting. So this means you can add some data to give the model context at the time of you're asking it a question, and that could essentially be like a file or some additional data. Look up this data in a list, or I'm going to supply you an Excel sheet, or CSV with some data, and that's more of an embeddings or RAG option for augmenting the model. In that scenario, you're not really changing the model; you're just giving it some additional data so it can give you more accurate responses. Okay, so now we're on to, apologies, that's the same slide. So now we're on to what exactly is fine-tuning. And so with fine-tuning, we're talking about customizing OpenAI models with your own data. And there are many reasons to do this, and these are some of the common use cases that where fine-tuning is kind of valuable. You have a specific domain you want the model to respond to. So this means you can incorporate your own data, fine-tune the model to better understand and generate content specific to your specific domain. And this is useful if you work in a specialized field, or if you have a specific data set that maybe it's private and it's relevant to your needs specifically. One of the other reasons that's quite common for fine-tuning is accuracy. the model might be, the generic model might be quite good, but you need it to be more accurate in a certain way. So you train the model further with additional data, and this allows the accuracy of the responses to go up. Well, hopefully, we'll get to that in a minute. Hopefully you end up with a model that's more accurate in response, and that's one of the common requirements around fine-tuning. Again, you can also kind of tune the model to your organizational alignment. Maybe you want it to speak a certain way, you want specific branding, and maybe this is, you might be able to do that with embeddings in RAG too, but maybe you want to build a custom model that then you give to other consumers downstream to use. And then finally, there's always the confidentiality and privacy concern. So in some cases, you want to keep your data completely private. In this case, you're fine tuning it, and if you do it in ways that keep your data secure, then that data is not in the generic model, and it's only in your private model. Okay, so now that we have an understanding of, how and why we might want to add some data to a custom model, and we're focusing on fine tuning, the question is, why would we use Terraform for this? So first of all, I'm sure no one in this session is going to be new to Terraform, but probably worth a quick recap. At a very high level, Terraform is developed by HashiCorp, is an open source infrastructure as code tool. It allows you to define and provision your infrastructure using configuration files in a declarative form. And so why do we need that sort of philosophy to manage fine-tuning models in OpenAI? Well, the reality is, if you are trying to fine-tune a model, then you are creating fairly complex data pipelines. This is not something you do, once and you're done. It's usually you will be iterating on this. You have to, update your data, tweak some parameters, make changes all the time. And what this really means is you are creating and destroying resources on OpenAI's platform. So when you think of that, that's where Terraform is a very good fit, and it can keep your resources under control, keep your cloud or your OpenAI cloud sprawl and costs under control as well. Okay, just keeping an eye on the time. So what does a typical GenAI ops workflow look like for fine-tuning? So at a very high level, we start with obtaining some data. So, this whole entire process only begins with something that you want to leverage. So you've got some data. This could be your customer data or your specific use case data on your specialty area. The next thing is there's some pre-process and feature engineering that happens on this data. So the data is cleaned, it's hygiened. Maybe there's some feature processing put on top of it to make it more machine readable, something along those lines. There's a lot of things that could happen in this space. Then what happens is, you decide, okay, I want to try this in a GenAI option. I want to use a model, configure some options, and some what we call hyperparameters, which is ways to configure the model you're working with. So it could be things like, I want you to be more creative, I want you to be less creative, or many other options that could be in the space that are specific to the model you're using. Then you go ahead and generate a fine-tuned model. That's so at the end of that, you will end up with an artifact that's stored in OpenAI. And then finally, you have to do some evaluation of performance. So, have I achieved the goal that I wanted? Did I get the accuracy I was hoping for? Am I, is the results meeting my expectations for the amount of work I've done? And this is where the iteration comes in, because you may decide that model didn't work, I need to change the model, or this model is working, but I need to tune the hyperparameters a bit. Or maybe we find the original data wasn't quite complete enough, or we need to hygiene the data in a different way, or gather some more data, or make it more more reliable or consistent. So we may end up in these sorts of two iterative loops. So what happens is this part is happening on the OpenAI platform. You're choosing the model, configuring options, generating the fine-tuned model, and evaluating performance is happening on the OpenAI platform. And as you iterate through this, you end up generating resources, uploading files, creating models, and essentially creating sprawl on the OpenAI platform. So this is where we're focusing Terraform to manage these resources on OpenAI. Okay, we are into the demo. Okay, so with this demo, what I wanted to do was make it as simple as possible so that we'll take a very simple use case and put it through the fine-tuning process. What I might do first off is just show you quickly. Apologies, let me bring this over. So this is the OpenAI portal. Hopefully that is visible. And so you can see here that I've been playing with fine-tuned models. I don't know if people have seen this dashboard, but you can get an account, log into OpenAI. You get the dashboard here, shows me fine-tuning and all the different things that I can create on the portal here. And you can see some models that I've been playing with in preparation for this demo. So when we can watch this be orchestrated once we start the demo. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I've created a sample repository in my own GitHub. I will share the links with this in the slides, so you can try this yourself. No major issues. Doesn't cost a lot to fine tune a very small model, but be aware if you scale that up to large amounts of data and a big model, the costs can definitely escalate. So be careful with how you scale that out. So this is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to clone this repo. So I'm starting from scratch just to show you that it is relatively simple to get started. I'm going to open this in Visual Studio Code. Okay. So what we have in this repo, and what we have in this project, sorry, is two folders. One contains a scripts folder, and there's some Terraform. The scripts folder is what we're going to use later to demonstrate the working model. So we'll come back to that. It's just a very small Python script, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Well, in a few minutes. And here is the Terraform that we're going to use to initiate a fine-tuned model creation. So this is what this looks like here. This is and what we're doing here is we're going to upload some recipe data, and later on we're going to use the model to ask for a recipe with some ingredients. And this is a sample that's on OpenAI's cookbook website, so pretty straightforward one. So as far as the Terraform goes, what we've got is we're using a provider from Skyscraper called the OpenAI provider in the registry. We are uploading, we're getting a secret from Vault to OpenAI, so I don't have to store the API key in my Terraform. We're then uploading some data. This is the data we're going to use to fine-tune the model. And then we create the fine-tuning job. And once it's complete, it's going to output the fine-tuned model. And that's the model we can use in our script above to demonstrate the working of it. So pretty straightforward. I'll switch to the Terraform folder. I'll do a Terraform init. This will download the providers. I'll now do a Terraform apply. And so this will begin the creation of that well, we'll get there. Okay, and as you can see, this is what it's creating. Just real quick, it's uploading the training file. It's going to create the file tuning job, and there's only 2 resources. Okay, so that is off and running. So okay, there we go. We can see here that it is starting up it's uploading the files and it's validating the files. Hopefully you can see that. Let me make that a bit bigger. So you can see here that it's validating the file upload. It's about to start fine tuning. Just refresh the page. It's getting there. We'll give it a second to get going. Okay, so we're still going. It's going to take a little while. So we're now moved on to the fine tuning process. So files have been validated. It's starting to fine tune. So what we can do, just in the interest of time, because this can take sort of 4 to 5 minutes to run, maybe 6 minutes. So what we'll do is we'll use one of the ones that I created earlier for the demo, and then we'll come back to see if the process completes successfully. So what I'm doing is going back to the one that I created half an hour ago. Made the screen too small. Typical, too big. Okay, so what we can do just to prove that that is working, let's create another terminal. Move into the scripts folder. So these scripts are Pythons. So I'm just going to install a Python environment. Just got some dependencies to install, like the OpenAI and some pandas components. I'm just installing those. Okay, and so just need to update the model. So we're using this model here. Okay, so if everything's working well, we should be able to run this test against the fine-tuned model. Hopefully you can see that. That has worked. And so the helpful recipe assistant is extracting generic ingredients from each of the recipes provided. Recipe was provided, and this was the response: beef brisket, catsup, water, onion, and a bunch of other cool ingredients. So that's just proving that the sample fine-tuned model is working. And that is the extent of the majority of this demo. Pretty simple, but it obviously can be extended to very large file sizes and very large models. If we go back to the other terminal session, let's have a quick look. Still running, so that'll be maybe a couple of minutes away to complete, and we'll come back to that. So maybe we can go through the final talk part, and then we'll come back to this and have a look. Okay, so right, so it's my last slide really. So I just wanted to share, first of all, here are the links to the GitHub repo for that fine-tuning demo. That fine-tuning demo is based on a OpenAI cookbook that basically it's an example that they provide on how to do fine-tuning. So it's a very simple use case that you can expand on. Also wanted to talk about the Terraform provider for OpenAI. This is, I'm actually Skyscraper, so you'll see down there my GitHub handle is Skyscraper. And Skyscraper, so I've actually written the OpenAI provider to enable this automation to work. So I've put a link in here. Feel free to, it's obviously on the registry, you can utilize it. There is no official provider from OpenAI, so there is only unofficial ones. So please take a look at that and have a play. I also wanted to briefly touch on, what does the Terraform support for GenAI look like today in the overall landscape? So obviously we have support for OpenAI via an unofficial provider. Amazon Bedrock has support via, so you can do fine tuning in the Amazon Bedrock workspace as well, and that it has support within the official Terraform provider for AWS. Incidentally, I helped to do some of that work in the early days, so that's good. There are other products, such as XAI, for example. Currently, their API doesn't support fine tuning, so that's a feature that I'm keeping an eye on because, obviously, if that becomes available, then we'll try to do something similar in that space to make sure that X is part of the automation options. And similarly with Google Vertex AI does support fine tuning, but currently there's no support for that in the Google Terraform provider. So again, there's a bit of work to do to kind of get everyone up to the same level. But in general, there's good support, and if people want to do automation, definitely worth looking at. So yeah, again, that's my email address down there. So richardweerasinghe@slalom.com. That's my X handle, richw3000. GitHub handle is Skyscraper, missed the last E. If you're interested in talking Terraform providers or GenAI automation, I'm always interested, so feel free to reach out and have a chat. I think what we can do just to round this out is just to go back and check that the build is complete, which hopefully will be about now. And as per usual, it's now 7 minutes. It also gives you an estimate, so we can probably have a look. Let's have a look at what the estimate's saying. Hasn't given us an estimate yet. So yeah, this will continue and we'll keep going until it completes. This is, and by the way, worth noting, the way these fine-tuning jobs queue up with OpenAI is a first come, first serve service. So if a lot of people are fine-tuning, your jobs will take longer. If no one's fine-tuning, they happen relatively quickly, and depending on the size of the job. Oh, in fact, there we go, just completed. So I wasn't a liar. So hopefully that's interesting. That pretty much rounds out the talk. I hope that was a good session. Look forward to any questions.